Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. This is Matt Jones, the host of the Life 2.0 podcast. And today I am talking about relationships. And this one is entitled From Trauma to Triumph, Building Lasting Love and Avoiding Relationship Red Flags. So this is a subject that I've been meaning to talk about for a little while. Talk about my own relationships, my graveyard of relationships. I'm sure many of you have some in the past. But the point is that we need to keep growing and learning. You really have to think of this like you're looking for a job, right? When you're looking for a certain job, you want it to be a certain salary range, right? You want it to have certain benefits. You want to have, other perks like maybe working from home, or you want a membership to a gym. We think of our career this way because we know we're going to spend a lot of our time that way, right, in this job. So we need to think of our relationships this way. We need to have these a foundation for our relationships, these certain parameters that we need to stick to, otherwise we cannot move forward. I know in my life I have not done this enough, and a lot of it has to do with my people-pleaser personality, which I will talk about a little bit more in detail. But as I've gotten older, I've had these realizations that as I move forward into my future relationships, there are a few things that I am just not willing to bend on, and you need to be firm with what these are, because you will end up saving yourself a lot of time in pain and suffering on these things. So today I am exploring the importance of really paying attention to red flags, embracing your self-awareness, and really breaking free from these unhealthy cycles that we do to ourselves. So I want to give you some strategies from moving on from past wounds, finding a healthy future relationship, and nurturing those really meaningful connections. I want to discuss sexual intimacy and, discovering a partner that is truly right for you. Today, luckily, I am really proud to have a co-host on today, and that is Chloe. Thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. I want to get the female perspective on these things as we talk towards relationships. And, I think we both have a lot of experience on this subject, obviously through our own personal relationships. So for you guys out there, if you don't know what relationship red flags are, basically, these are warning signs, okay? This is something that makes you uncomfortable. These are behaviors exhibited by this other person that you're interested in or already in a relationship with that indicates, real problems or challenges in the relationship. And it serves as indicators that something may be off or unhealthy, and, that it creates an unhealthy dynamic between you two. So the point of today is to recognize these red flags and discover if they're right for you, and if you need to move on with your relationship, or if you are dating people, understand that these are your red flags. You need to stick to them and not move forward. And some of these include a lack of communication, disrespectful behavior, controlling or manipulative behavior. There's also lack of trust. If you can't trust your partner, if they do something, if they cheated, this is a huge red flag. Obviously, emotional or physical abuse, and dishonesty or infidelity, and a lack of support in general. This could be with your profession, with just who you are as a person. So I really think in the pursuit of building healthy and fulfilling relationships, it's crucial to develop the skill of recognizing these red flags. So by paying attention to the subtle cues and these gut instincts we get, we can really empower ourselves to make a more informed decision, and have a more emotional well-being, and stop my crying all the time.
They only get worse anyway if you ignore them at the start.
That's right.
What happened to me?
Yeah. So tell us, share with us, a little bit about, what do red flags look like for you? When did you kind of realize these things, and what are you looking for in a relationship as well?
I think the biggest thing is the lack of communication. I know you said that was really common, but Yeah, that's really an issue.
Us men aren't very good at the communication thing.
You say that, but so many women are like it too.
That's a fair point.
I think people are scared to communicate, maybe because of the ramifications. That's what I've found. I think it's more they're scared of being vulnerable. And I also am very empathetic, so I don't necessarily want to class it as a red flag. When I'm in a relationship, I feel bad for the person. So I'm like, oh, it's just because they're worried or they're scared. So then I ignore it and let it get worse. But that's a massive one. It makes me feel very disrespected when there's a lack of communication.
Right. So you're
not very safe.
You wear your heart on your sleeve.
Yeah.
You're a very open communicator.
I'm learning to be.
Right.
It's hard when you've been in that situation where there's no communication and it's not welcomed and received very well, because some people take it personally when you try to discuss issues, which, again, I guess is a red flag for me, because then I stop wanting to communicate because I feel worried about the reaction.
You shut down, don't you?
Yeah, which I've definitely done. I'm very anxious in my relationships. I have a very big abandonment issue, so I want to please people. And I know that you said about people pleasing later on, but yeah, so I just ignore it.
Talk about it. Yeah, that's what I do. I didn't know it till later. I think it started from childhood. But I've had a tendency to, I've jumped into relationships and I've done everything I can to support the other person, and a lot of times at the expense of like my needs, because I've really I'm a nice guy, and maybe it's a typical nice guy thing, I don't know. But you want the other person to feel good, and when there's an issue, I'm very positive minded, so I'm like, oh, whatever it is, we can get through this. This is no big deal.
Oh,
Thinking I can push through these red flags, like no big deal.
Right?
Yeah, this will be fine. Oh, sure, but we can get better. We can get through that. And let me just make sure, as long as I serve her needs, maybe she'll support me later on.
Yeah, I'm more of a blame myself kind of person.
Right.
So I'm more like, well, they're doing that because of something I did. So I'm, it's more a self-blame situation. But I can see, any validation feels good, so I understand.
Right.
Anyone shows you attention.
Yeah,
especially if you maybe lacked that a little bit previously, or in previous relationships or in your childhood. I've definitely run towards it. I understand that. So yeah, respect and the lack of communication, definitely my two main ones. Also, if they have a cat, I'm out. I'm taking that forward.
Oh,
Been there, done that.
Me too.
No, I'm convinced people that just have cats. I have a cat, but just people that have cats own only cats.
I've had cats too. Yes, I like cats, but if I had to say it, I'm a dog person. They're funner. You can do more with them. They're playful. It's just so much better. And I feel like people who like cats are a little bit more
scared of commitment.
Girly, scared of commitment.
Yeah, because cats,
why do you say that?
Because cats are so easy. They go out. You have a cat flap. You just feed them. They don't really require much attention. They're very avoidant. If they had a love attachment style, it would be avoidant, wouldn't it? And so I think
cats are very much
that doesn't
give me some food and go fuck yourself.
Whereas dogs are more like my attachment style and my love.
Loving. They want to cuddle you. They love the attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if people only like cats, they're not going to like being in a relationship with me. Is what I've decided.
I agree. When I started the whole online dating thing, which is a disaster, because I've been in a committed relationship for the last decade, right when Tinder blew up and then all these other dating apps.
Tinder.
I had no idea what I was doing. My friend from work was like, you got to do this. You got to get on this Tinder thing. No, Tinder's outdated. You do this Bumble thing, and then you do, and then my other friend's like, just get on Field.
Wait, which one's Bumble? The one where the woman has to message you?
Yeah, it's like they're in control, which is a good thing.
I like that.
Yeah, they're the ones who initiate
everything. Takes the pressure
off. Yeah. And then there's other apps like Field, which is like a strictly hookup site, and you don't know. For someone who hasn't been in this dating field online,
I felt like
a lamb to the slaughter. You know what I mean? I didn't know what I was doing. So it's been really confusing.
Do you look for cats on their profile and just swipe the wrong
if they
way?
have cats, like,
Me too.
Nope, gone.
Cats is fine as long as you also have other pets.
Sure, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
And again, I've had cats that are really cool, and they did like love. But it's rare. But if gun to my head, cat or dogs, always dog. I've had the best dogs. They run. They run at the beach. They jump in the water. They get the ball. They come back. Like, we wrestled. I still fall asleep on my dog as a kid. It's just. I never, you just can't do this with a cat. You try to walk them, and they're going to claw your face off.
And try doing that with a person that only likes cats. I don't think they're going to like it.
But this is a valid point. Even though we're just talking about animals here. It really is. It's values, and like you mentioned, they don't really take much nurturing. Cats, do they?
Yeah, exactly.
They really don't. So it's a good point. But this is a good point to bring up. In terms of values and spotting those red flags. You know what I mean? It might seem like a small thing. But after a few years, those small things, they turn into really big things.
And it's not always necessarily a bad personality trait of that person. It's just something that doesn't tie in well with your life and goals and values. Because I think you can ignore that at the start.
Right.
When you're kind of crowded with all that love and lust.
Yeah.
And then you realise that the things that you thought you weren't going to agree on have turned into big things.
Right.
If you then pair that with the lack of communication, it's a lot. So little things that you maybe don't agree with initially.
Right, that makes sense. And, I have to say one of the benefits of online dating is that it does streamline the process. So, you strike me as someone who'd probably maybe never be interested in someone who's maybe a Tory, I imagine. You know what I mean? Like, I could never be with, like, an ultra-conservative, like, Trump-loving woman.
I needed a pre-warning if this was going to get into politics.
Obviously, so yes, I'm American, but I live in the UK now. But, if they were ultra-Christian conservative, that's just one of those things. It's just a value I don't align on.
Yeah, me too.
And we think, that's not everything. But it really is. Like, let's cut the bullshit.
No, I agree.
There's no way in the universe they could work. If somebody says they can work that way, I just don't believe them. Like,
there's a level.
way.
I think that if you have good communication, you can overcome. But at the end of the day, especially if you're... when I've been on dates and things, I'm kind of thinking of a longer-term situation. If I was with somebody who had really different life values, I would worry about the future, how we would deal with that, with families and if
Kids.
we had children. Yeah, like
Right.
I'm not going to want to raise my children like that.
Right.
Not that I have any problem. I respect people living that way, but and you have to have such good communication if you're going to try and pursue a relationship with someone who has such a different lifestyle and
you've mentioned before, I think, being an ex-partner that you were talking about putting the kids in
Catholic
school. Right?
Yeah, neither of us were religious, but the person felt like the education is better at religious schools, which again is fine if you have the communication and the respect of each other's values. I didn't feel like we did, so it was really hard when I didn't feel like it was a conversation, more of a dictatorship.
Right.
So yeah, that was a problem. So I guess you could make it work if you had that really good level of communication and respect for each other.
Good point.
But that's, in my experience, hard to find, so it's maybe easier to find more aligning values. I don't know.
Perhaps.
Have no idea. I'm still trying to wing it.
Perhaps. Yeah, I think these things matter in terms of building a strong foundation. You need to be aligned on these things.
And they get big. They get worse.
Yeah, they're only going to get worse.
Life,
we could say it's not a big deal, but once we do get to those decisions, I think it can cause a lot of issues. But not even that in general. I mean, other things, in terms of habits, do they like exercising? You know what I mean? Or are they into drugs, stuff like that? That is good with the online dating profile. You can see those things.
Yeah, you can see that before.
I don't want anybody who's a, big druggie, though. Obviously, I'm from California. Come on, like, weed is legal. Come on, we've all tried that, I have no problem with that stuff.
I normally avoid people that smoke when I'm on my online dating.
Oh, that's it. See, there you go. Smoking it sticks on you. Tobacco smoke. I was a smoker for years. But so that's a red flag, but that's really important because if you overlook that and it becomes a problem later, and they don't want to quit, it's kind of both of your faults. but mostly,
Yeah, I agree.
we have to take ownership for these things. Especially me, I overlooked a lot of things in past relationships. I've been cheated on, right? Like, and I had suspicions about this person I was with who needed a lot of attention. I dated a lot of dancers, being a musician naturally, and working in the arts community. I did, but I noticed there was a lot of natural narcissistic issues, and when I found out that I was cheated on, it obviously was earth shattering for me, and it hurt so bad. But I was thankful in the end that it happened because we actually just moved about 3,000 miles, and it happened within like a month.
Oh my God.
And that I was cheated on. I know, it was crazy, but I'm so lucky that happened. I've learned to reframe it in my mind because that could have happened in 5 years. What if we got married and had a child together?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like that could have been so bad. But there was these red flags in the beginning that I noticed, like these tendencies to want a lot of attention from people, and a tendency to talk a lot of crap about other people.
Yeah, I've noticed that before.
If you have a friend or you're in a relationship with someone who talks a lot of crap about other people, you got to be careful of those people because chances are when you leave the room, they're going to talk about you.
I've been with people like that before.
Yeah, and it's okay to discuss, if there's a serious issue
kind of
and
fun
things happening.
sometimes.
But it became regular every single time. It's like I expected, okay, we're getting in the car. We just left this thing. Okay,
It's like a
who is
debrief
she?
of- yeah.
Who is she going to talk smack about now?
Yeah.
And you got to be careful with people like that. If they spend all their time talking, making themselves feel better.
Also shows a massive insecurity, which is then why
Yes.
people, I guess, cheat because they look for that validation.
Yeah, very true.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. So, these are all really huge red flags for me. I don't know. What are other red flags that for you think? Respect is a huge one for me.
Yeah,
I think you said the
respect,
same thing,
definitely.
right?
And also not how you deal with conflict. So everyone's different, and I guess whether you've talked about what you need when you have an argument, do you need space or do you need to talk it through, and
Right.
all of those things. But for me, I struggle if people don't want to discuss it at all. That again, a lot of my red flags are because I know they're not compatible with things that I need from a relationship. So yeah, not really dealing with conflict well, and people that
So
don't.
what does that mean, dealing with conflict well? Like you want to bring up an issue and then they blow up at you?
No, the worst ones are the ones that just won't talk to you at all.
Oh, sure.
That's the worst thing for me.
Completely
Completely
deprioritizing
just
you,
like
not
I need
caring
to
about
just
what
walk
you
off
need or
and
want.
just not.
Right.
I'm trying to get better at that because I know some people need space when they have conflict.
Sure.
So I'm trying.
We all have our own boundaries,
Yeah,
don't we? That
I'm
which needs to be
trying.
respected. But after a while, you need to come back and you need to sort it out and find a compromise,
exactly.
don't you?
I struggle with people that just ignore it and then they want to go back to normal.
Right.
Like that for me isn't going to work because I need to decompress it all in my brain and I need to reconnect with you because now I feel really disconnected.
Correct.
And I need to be like, how do we then get back to that connection? Because I can't do that on my own.
Right.
So
that's just not healthy. You have to talk. You have to be open.
Yeah. And I've just found a lot. It's very similar trends with the respect and the communication and people that don't want to hear about your day, or if there's a negative part of your day, they can't really deal with that and they don't want to talk it through with you. I think it's a lot that stems from that person and things that they're dealing with, which is fine, but for me it doesn't work very well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, speaking from the guy's perspective, I think guys are it's more common for men to not be very vulnerable and want to open up about that stuff. I don't think I've necessarily been that way my whole life. I was very close to my mom. I've been naturally attuned at talking about my emotions and feelings, I think. But I've also was born in a generation with parents who are the type of people to be like, just get on with it. Stop your crying.
Yeah.
Just get on with it. That's very much our generation and their generation. Don't talk about your emotions. Sweep it under the rug. Get on with it. So largely through my 20s was like, why do I want to talk about this? Why? What's it going to help? It's not going to help anything. I'm going to sweep it under the rug, and I'm going to move on.
Sounds healthy.
That's what you got to do.
Sure.
Oh yeah, but then you get a lumpy rug. And it wasn't until later that I really realized that, like, oh my God, vulnerability is a strength.
Yeah.
It is such a strength to be and plus I developed that that openness with my partner, and they go, "Oh, you're not doing well either." "Yeah, I'm not doing well either." "Oh, well, hey, let's talk about it." "Oh, let me help you." And then it becomes a real partnership in that way, rather than let me just keep myself in my corner. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me. I'll come back to you if and when I want to do it on my time or whatever. And that's just not healthy at all.
Yeah,
You gotta be open. You gotta be vulnerable. But like you said, you do gotta have boundaries, don't you?
Yeah, and you need to discuss what you both need, I think, in that moment. But it's how you get back to the connection for me, which is really important.
Right. So I want to move on to the next thing about self-discovery. So, I think self-awareness is important. You need to be strong in who you are as an individual, before you can get into a relationship that is healthy. Because a lot of people, they dive into relationships and they think this person's going to make me happy. I was never happy before, but as long as I find this person and then I attach to them and I make them my whole world, I'll finally be happy.
Sounds like you're speaking from experience.
I don't know what you're talking about. But yes, I've found this especially because I'm a guy, I don't know, maybe it's a Virgo thing. I don't really believe in the signs and all that stuff. Though I have seen similarities. I'll give it up.
I haven't even read mine.
I'll give it up for it. But Virgos, apparently we like our space. And I do find this when I get away and I can go for a run or have a couple hours to myself to just do some writing. Or meditate, like I come back better and I can show up better for my relationship. And I needed that. This is one issue I had before was I needed a lot of it in the past. I needed it in the past and I didn't get a lot of it.
Right.
It was like, well, why are you doing that? Well, no, that's no good because I got to do this. And I had these fights with this person that, listen, it's not about you. It's about me right now. And, you shouldn't feel selfish for the self-care that you need. You know what I mean? This person did not prioritize self-care. They didn't want to do that. And I felt I was made to feel selfish for wanting to take care of myself because I know I will be able to show up better for my relationship. If I go out and I run and I feel better physically, mentally, I've spent a lot of my life very independent, but I know whenever I'm struggling, when I get a little bit of time to myself, as long as it's communicated effectively, letting that person know that, listen, I love you, and this isn't me leaving. Hasn't anything to do with you.
Yeah,
it has to do with me, and just needing this for myself. We all need a little bit of a break from time to time. Mm-hmm. You like to go out with your girlfriends, right, in a relationship. And you like to go out and have drinks with the girls, right?
Yeah.
Guys, sometimes you like to just go out with the guys and have a drink and, talk some smack and, and it helps us feel better, right?
I agree with you, mostly.
Okay.
But I've definitely
Please challenge me.
Been on the other side of that. I understand what you're saying. And I'm definitely trying to work on it.
And what is that specifically?
It's hard for me to give people that space because I definitely internalize it. My automatic reaction is to internalize that as they don't want to spend time with me. They're sick of me. And that stems from a lot of trauma, but which I have become more aware of, and I am working on it, and I can deal with it much better now as long as it is communicated well.
Right.
But it's taken a lot of work.
Would you agree that in a relationship you both need some sense of space?
Absolutely. But I think when you've got your own struggles, it's hard to recognize that for the positive.
Sure.
Although, if you're saying it in that plain terms like that, like I love you and it's nothing to do with
That's a very good point. It can sound very nonchalant, but it's like, just give me space.
Yeah.
Just give me some space. That's not the right way
Yeah.
to say it. I believe in respect at all times, in the biggest moments and the smallest moments, whether you're taking out the garbage, always say things in a nice and respectful way,
Yeah.
Hey, would you mind taking out the garbage? Not, hey, take the garbage out, please. Or, just these like little tones. Tone is everything to me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's why I've never found the partner that I can
should have been on our red flags list.
Tone.
Oh, I hate it.
Tone is just loaded with innuendo and this subtext. You know what I mean?
And like they're better than you.
Like, hey, you gonna wash the dishes tonight?
Oh no.
Basically says
passive aggressive.
You never wash the dishes. I hate you. I'm mad at you. It needs to be something like, hey, listen, I've done the dishes for the past 3 nights. I would really appreciate if you could do them tonight. Do you think you could do that for me? I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Something like, always rephrasing those issues. But and when I said that in past relationships, they're always like, "You're ridiculous. You're never going to find anybody who will talk that way to you." Okay, you're just not. No one's going to talk to you that way. And I'm like, okay. And I would just be like, oh, sure, maybe I'm ridiculous. I don't know. Maybe I was.
I feel sorry for your people-pleasing personality.
I know. It's so people-pleasing. But it's good because now I realize that, like, you know what? I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. Yeah. That tone that you just took with me, I don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to argue with that, goodbye.
Wow, so you're a bit more cutthroat these days.
Absolutely. I'm pushing 40, and I'll tell you, I finally figured out who I am, I think. But the point is lifelong learning, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. We think we have all the answers at this age, and we don't. Every day you learn something new about yourself, about other people, and what you need. And as you get a little bit older, you also start giving a lot less of a shit about things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You learn to just let things just fall off a lot easier, I think.
When you learn more about yourself, it's so much easier to communicate with other people. If they want to listen, then you can share the things that you've learned about yourself, and then that helps them to get to know you and be a better partner with you. Mm-hmm. And then you can do the same. If you don't know yourself and you haven't done that self-discovery, it's much harder to articulate what you need from a relationship.
Exactly.
And what you expect from a relationship, because you don't know, you haven't done the work, I guess, which is obviously always like a journey. You're always doing it, but once you have that, if you've had trauma and you kind of explore that, you can share it if you're in a safe space with your partner. So much connection I've got from sharing trauma in relationships.
Right.
Like, it really makes you feel so safe when somebody receives it well and you really feel like they're there for you.
Right.
These
life-changing events that happen in your life, that someone can empathize, sympathize what it's like to be in that type of a situation. I know for me, I've definitely had trauma that I've never really confronted. Like, being cheated on is a huge thing for me. But I did know that, and this is the next thing I want to talk about, and I want your input on this, but it's moving on from the past. For me, not allowing past trauma to get into your future relationships is so important.
And so hard.
And also so hard, yeah. But past trauma can really shape you in such a strong way, but you can't let it move on to your next relationship. You can't carry that baggage with you. You have to let it. You have to let it go, and that's part of the self-discovery process. And what did I learn? And what I learned from that other relationship was that, wow, this red flags. I overlooked these red flags, and now 2 years later, here I am.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah.
That's a tough lesson after so many years with somebody, but I know I finally learned it. So. And that's okay, because in the end I knew that I'm on a better journey. I know, like, with my new partner, things feel so much healthier. I can talk about everything. When I say, like, I actually need some space today. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Would that be okay? And I communicate it. It's received with no problem. Of course, I totally understand. When you talk to relationship experts and people who have been in a marriage for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they will tell you need your space. You both need 100%. To have your separate lives, and you come back together better, stronger. But you have to be happy separately.
Yeah,
and then you come back together, definitely. And then it create more happiness together, definitely. You know what I mean? So in terms of your trauma, from your past relationships, what are some things that, like, you realized, like, how did you cope with the trauma, and when did the red flags really hit you?
If I'm being honest, at the start, I just ignored them. But a lot of my red flags, I have repeated my parents' relationship in my next few relationships that were serious. And I've been to therapy, which has really helped. That was a massive turning point. I met a really good friend a couple of years ago who had already kind of started on a bit of a self-discovery journey, which, again, learning from her and kind of surrounding myself with those people with those mindsets really helped me as well, because I think you get a lot from the people that you're with every day. You get a lot from them. So that was really, really good. And I definitely saw the red flags. I mean, I was only 19 when I got into my last long-term relationship, so I definitely didn't know as much as I do now.
Of course.
Obviously I've grown a lot since then. I'm very different. I'm still definitely learning, but I think the main thing is trying to continue with my life as well as have my relationship is definitely how I'm trying to I have to set boundaries for myself and like keep these little promises. Like I'm still going to do that even though I'm in a relationship now, because before I would just forget about all of that. You know, just really wanted to please that person, do everything to be attached and connected to that person all the time. Again, back to the fear of abandonment.
Right. And did you feel that in your relationship things were reciprocated?
No.
Okay. So that's a big one.
Yeah, no, not really. The thing is, the more that I did all this work, the more that I felt disconnected from my partner, because I felt like I was learning so much and I was growing away from the relationship because I was learning all this stuff about me.
Right.
But a lot of it, I mean, that was just a bit of a symptom of the actual problem, since I've realised that it's because of my parents having a very, very disconnected relationship. They had no respect for each other and they couldn't communicate at all.
Right.
That was kind of where it started. So that's where I went to and did all the work to then move on with trying not to bring it into my relationships now.
Right. Unfortunately, we tend to replicate our past traumas into a future relationship, and we see it as normal, don't we?
Well, I guess I felt like it was love. That's all I'd ever seen from a young age was this.
Right.
This was marriage, right? This is all I'd
Right.
ever seen. So I didn't even realise. I was like 2 relationships in when I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what happened to my mum.
Right.
And I'm dealing with it exactly the way she did, which I know she was doing her best, but was not a healthy way to deal with it at all.
Right.
And I was just doing the exact same thing. And now I try very hard not to do that. But it's still a journey. I mean, I still get those moments where I'm like, oh, I feel like they're going to leave me. But I'm a lot better at working through it and communicating my fears with my partner and trying to set myself little promises, like I'm still going to go and do this and enjoy it separately from my partner and then come back. Sometimes I don't enjoy myself when I leave and go and do stuff.
Sure.
But I'm glad that I do.
Right.
Do you know what I'm still attached, but I'm working on it.
Well, you sound like you really know who you are.
Yeah.
You sound like you've done a lot of self-discovery, knowing that past trauma with your family and how you're replicating that in your current relationship.
Yeah.
But you put 2 and 2 together. You know what I mean? That's the important part. That's why we need to discover where this trauma comes from. You know, why did we feel the need to people please so bad? Why? For me, I was the youngest child in the home.
Makes sense.
I'm the baby of the family. Wah. But a lot of times when there was issues, acrimony in the marriage with my parents when I was growing up, I was the problem solver of the family. But I was always like, I don't want anybody to be sad. I want everybody to be happy. Yeah. What a naive, poor little child. He was destined to get ruined, wasn't he? But I think I wanted to be a problem solver when I was the kid. And I was like, I want to make everybody feel good. I don't want anybody to fight. I don't want to fight about money. I don't want to see these things. So I think that tendency to please in my family started at an early age. And unfortunately,
and then you did that going forward.
That came into my relationships. And despite if it was wrong or not, I would still do it, you know?
Did you know it was wrong? Like, did you know someone was treating you a way that they shouldn't, but you still wanted to make it okay, or was it all subconscious?
Yeah. I think it was subconscious.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really realize this until
afterwards.
Until recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of other things to add into this story, obviously, but I definitely wanted to settle in my relationship. We lost our childhood home. I wanted to settle. I knew I wanted to have a family. I wanted to be married. I wanted to settle. I wanted to have my own sense of home pretty early on. So
Right. Yeah.
I was really kind of just throwing myself. I would always, when I found someone I was really interested in, I would just throw myself into a relationship. And if there's a few red flags, I would kind of overlook them. And unfortunately, in the end, it turns out to be those things that define the entire relationship.
Yeah,
So if there's
that
one
makes
piece of
sense.
advice I can give to everybody, it's make sure you stick to your qualities, your foundations, who you are, and you don't budge from that. And the person who's supposed to be right for you won't make you budge either.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right?
Definitely.
They support who you
The
are.
main thing for me about how I have not tried not to let all my trauma affect my relationship is communication, and trying at the start to make sure I was more aligned with the person than before.
Right, exactly.
So I felt safer and more comfortable to talk about all these things, and then they're highlighted less because I get triggered less because I've talked about it, and then we can deal with it as a partnership. But yeah, I mean, all of it, communication and knowing about the trauma really helped me.
Right. And noticing that it's a sign of strength. Our traumas we tend to feel really bad about, don't we? Somehow
Yeah.
we can feel like we can still feel guilty for being traumatized in life. It's crazy what we do to ourselves.
Yeah.
But you should never feel
Or
guilty
you just
for
want
the
to
trauma.
forget it and move on. You just want to,
Yeah.
like, oh, well, that was before, but I
Yeah.
tried to do that and it didn't work.
Right.
I really had to, like I said, go to therapy. I still do that.
Good.
And that I would not be able to continue my relationships without kind of going back and dealing with, because otherwise it just crops up all the time
Right.
and you don't know how to talk about it.
But the point is, you need to go through that journey yourself. You need to understand who you are, how that trauma shaped you, and then be able to share it with a partner moving forward. But if that partner shuts you down,
Yeah.
is not willing to engage with you on that, and doesn't want to hear about it, you can't go anywhere from there.
No, I agree.
So I suppose for you, so you expect to be able to share that with a
I
partner,
need to, yeah.
and for them to understand where it comes from and who you are.
Some people can't take that on, which I understand, but that would again mean that that's not compatible for my expectations for a relationship. So now that I know that, I can be a bit more selective.
Right. What do you mean? What do you mean someone can't understand that perspective?
Not that they can't understand. I think some people aren't, in my experience, some people can't some people aren't in a place where they can kind of discuss all of that trauma with you in their own journey, and they can't necessarily be there and be that person for you. That doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they're not at the place where they can kind of listen to it. Maybe I'm being too nice again.
I feel like you're doing some people pleasing right now. Is that just me?
Maybe, yeah. This is what I mean. All my red flags, I'm like, no, but
See, this is what I'm
bless
talking
them.
about. Let's
You know,
take
it's
ownership
probably-
of what we need and what we want.
Yeah.
If you opened up about something you needed help with, were
that
they
was
not
just
there for you?
shut down, yeah.
You were shut down
Yeah, just there was no conversation.
about something that was
Yeah.
really traumatic to you, that made you cry, that
Yeah.
negatively
Yeah.
affected your day to day.
Yeah, no, definitely just kind of shut down. They'd leave the room if it was, it was
Because
a lot.
you're being too emotional or something.
I think because they just didn't want to take on the trauma. I don't know if it was like, I just felt like there wasn't space in that person's life for what I was trying to talk about, and they weren't able to talk about it with me. But then again, I'm talking about how how lack of communication was an issue anyway. So then
Right.
when you're then trying to discuss such a difficult and vulnerable topic, of course it's not going to be easy because you struggle to discuss where you're going to go for dinner, So,
Sure.
yeah,
Right.
I think it's all linked, isn't it?
Right.
But yeah, shut down.
But that's big for you. The shutting down is a huge thing. It's different, and this goes back to communication again. If we all work like really hard, we come home at the end of the day, at 6 p.m., and you've been dealing with people all day. I think it's okay to engage with people and let them know how you're feeling. So if you're going through something, and correct me if I want to get your perspective on this. If you're going through something that's really traumatic, and I've had people on me all day, like calls, questions, emails, and be like, if I said to you, hey, listen, I understand you're going through something right now. I just need 15 minutes to, get my head straight, and then I'm going to come over. I'm going to talk about this, but I'm so sorry. I'm not in the right headspace right now. Would that be okay to you?
Would you actually say that?
I don't know. I'm trying to.
No, like in a.
I'm playing devil's advocate here. This is what I'm saying, because this is where the miscommunication happens.
I just can't imagine people actually saying.
Sometimes, I don't know. Perhaps I'm the unicorn. I don't know. I think I'm pretty good in communication, but who knows? Sometimes, we emotionally dump on each other in a relationship naturally, don't we?
Yep.
But when we do that, we're coming into someone else's universe who's had a long day. We don't necessarily know what's been going on all day. So if they need 10 minutes to clear their head, I think they should be allowed. And this is where we set the boundaries.
I would be fine with that communication.
I'm playing devil's advocate with what you went through. So if they said to you, listen, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I understand how you're feeling. Listen, I need 15 minutes. It's been a really long day. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm gonna clear my head. I'm gonna take a quick shower. I'm gonna come back and we're gonna discuss your issue. Would that be okay to you?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, because it was clearly communicated to you. Yeah,
because it's clearly communicated.
But when they walk away, they're like, I don't want to deal with this. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
And I think this happens every day for most couples. They get home, they see each other, and then they feel deprioritized because they didn't communicate that correctly. And this is why I'm saying we need to always be respectful in every second, every minute of every day. Always have a respectful tone to our partner. Maybe I'm crazy here. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that would be fine. I think it's very hard for people to do. I think people don't naturally communicate like that, and people weren't naturally modelled communication like that as a child. That certainly wasn't what happened in any of my extended family at all. So
Right.
I've never felt comfortable to do that. I'm trying to learn to.
I'm just so old and sick of fighting these days.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's hard to have energy when you're pushing 40, isn't it?
It is, but I think a relationship, it should feel good most of the time. If it feels good 20% of the time, is that relationship really worth pursuing? Because I have unrealistic expectations, apparently.
No, I think you don't have unrealistic expectations. I think you've obviously seen an opportunity, and then you've kind of worn your heart on your sleeve with it, definitely. But yeah, that would be fine. Sometimes I still get a bit triggered when people talk to me, even when it's clearly communicated, but I try to separate what's my reaction and what's their behaviour. So if their behaviour was still respectful and I was happy with how they dealt with the situation, it still made me feel rubbish, but that's not your fault because you did everything that I would think was acceptable for me.
Right.
So then it's just, I'm reacting to this in this way, but my reaction is mine, right? So if it's made me feel crap, if it's nothing to do with what you did, then I'll kind of work on that. Maybe I'll still talk about it with my partner, but I'll kind of work on that myself.
Right.
And kind of try and go through that, and why I'm feeling like that. It's more likely that I'm feeling a bit insecure, or there's other things that are going on because they did communicate well with me.
That's good. And I'd like to think I'm a good communicator, but thinking into my past, when I had an issue with something, I would never say it. The partners I've been with, they're very good at you did this and it bothered me. You did this and it bothered me. When they did something that bothered me, I would never say it. I would go one thing I dealt with was talking down to me in public with other people. It comes from my childhood, but I was from being bullied. And when it happened in my relationship, I didn't know what to do in the moment when it happened. I was embarrassed in front of family and friends, and it was made to be condescending as a joke, and then it was dismissed later as a joke when I brought it up. But I didn't know how to bring it up. I was embarrassed. I was hurt. But then I was being told later that I was just being too soft.
Right.
And then being a man, you're not, you're supposed to be tough. And I mean, I'm a nice guy. I was, I know now I was a lamb to the slaughter. You know what I mean?
Aww.
And this isn't all who is me. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying I understand my personality more now. And that's the point of this discussion, is that I know my tendencies.
So you feel like you can bring things up now that irritate you more?
Yeah, so if something irritates me now I know that I'm going to bring it up on the spot. I'm going to communicate it more effectively. I'll communicate it in a constructive, effective manner, but I'm going to do it more now.
Do you feel?
And I have been doing that the last couple of years since I've been dating, and since I've been trying to date more. I have been doing that.
How did you get from not feeling like you could bring things up to now where you can?
I just bring them up. So I like to, as I've said, I like my space. I like to get my own space, and then I think about a situation, how it happened, and why it made me feel that way. But I'll think about it or ruminate on it for 2 or 3 days. My partner's moved on to 2 other things, and then 4 days later, I'll come back and be like, "How dare you say that to me?" And she'll be like, "Huh?" I'm
what
like,
are you talking about?
Well, 3 days ago, da 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 da. See,
right.
like so.
So you've sat on it basically because you're scared to bring it up.
I was scared to bring it up, but it was my issue that I have to accept as if something bothered me and I didn't communicate effectively, that's on me.
And it's different, I guess. There's only so much work you can do on yourself if you are in a toxic relationship. There's only so much you can do.
Right.
How did you get from that? Like, that's a lot to go through. So how do you now, like, approach that? Because there was obviously a journey from you leaving that relationship to now. You don't just automatically wake up and think, you know what, this person's going to listen to me and I'm going to tell them what my problem was and I'm not going to feel scared.
Right. No, it's just a lot of self-discovery. So I just wasn't supported. Those people you need to just run from. You need to just run. You need the people who are going to pick you up when you can't go a second further and go, you keep fucking going. I'm proud of you. I'm so happy for you. You're doing something that you love. You keep going. Those are the people you want in your life. Those people who really lift you up. So
you
in the end,
from that.
Oh my God, yeah, the best thing to happen to me. Absolutely.
Interesting.
You know, and it's not that I regret it. And this is the other thing about relationships. When we fail, we can't think of it as a failure. It was a learning lesson.
Yeah.
Every failure is a chance to learn something. So we don't really fail. We just learn more in our life. So I've learned a lot of my life. I've learned so much. I'm exhausted.
So basically now you have no excuse not to communicate to your partner because...
Yes, I tell them everything. All of my insecurities. I come out and say, hey, how you doing? My name is Matt. I have severe depression. I have this. I have that. I have that. I'm a mess, basically.
Sure,
do you want to date me?
But you're up front. Yeah, I get it.
What I'm saying is I've learned a lot. And
yeah, me too. I read a lot of books after I split up with my previous partner.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Anything you'd recommend?
My favorite thing that I read was, have you ever read Attached?
No.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Attached.
So it talks about, I listened to the audiobook actually because I'm not very good at reading. And it talks about different people's attachment styles and how that then develops in your relationship.
Is this like love languages, basically?
It's slightly separate. So, like, you have people that are... I'm going to butcher it, so people should just read the book. But you basically have 3 that they went into. So it was about avoidant attachment styles, anxious attachment styles, and secure attachment styles. And a lot of it... it was just so good. And I learned so much about myself because so much of it was relevant to what I was going through.
Right.
One of my friends recommended it to me, I think just before my relationship ended. And at the time when I hadn't quite left the relationship, it was hard to listen to because I was seeing so much of these things, hearing so much of these things. I was like,
that's totally me. That's totally me.
I need to be away from this. Once I listened to it afterwards, I was like, oh my God, this is so interesting because you see yourself in some of what they talk about. You see your partner in some of what they talk about. There's actually like ways to move forward if you're in a relationship where your attachment styles don't like collaborate well. They do give you tips for that. It's not all just, get a divorce.
Right.
But it's so interesting, and when you're listening to it when you're not in a relationship, then you're like, wow, I can take these things forward next time and look out for these traits in people and then recognise if they're avoidant or anxious or the others that are available.
Right. That's really good.
And it was so interesting.
I'm going to have to read that book.
You really should. It's so interesting.
Okay.
But, definitely the love languages thing. You can do a little quiz online for your love language.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's so many quizzes online nowadays.
I love that. Mine's physical touch.
That's good. Right. Mine is the doing favors.
Acts of service.
Acts of service.
Yeah,
That's what it
makes
is for
sense.
me. Yeah, making sure the place is clean and doing all these things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm rubbish at giving gifts, but when it comes to being at your attention and at all times of the day, cooking, cleaning, I'm all
Yeah.
about that one.
Is that how you feel loved when people do stuff for you?
Yeah, I suppose so.
So like if someone did things that like took something away from your daily task,
Yeah.
would that make you feel loved?
I mean, I'm pretty easy to please. If you bring me a cup of coffee, like, I'll marry you. You know what I mean?
Right, sure,
Like,
that makes sense why you got into these circumstances before.
Yeah, I'm so pathetic. But no, I'm a pretty simple guy at the end of the day, I suppose.
Because I feel like when I'm in a relationship, I'm very physical and affectionate because that's how I feel loved. That's what I do for people.
Right.
But that's not necessarily how they feel loved.
Right.
Because if you want acts of service
Right.
and I'm just giving you loads of physical affection because that's how I'm showing love, you're not necessarily feeling loved.
Right.
And so I looked into that as well after I left my previous relationship because I was like, this is a revelation. I never knew about this before. My friend recommended it again.
And not everybody is comfortable
Wow.
with physical touch in a relationship. Some people
Exactly,
just don't
yeah.
like public affection as well.
But if you don't know...
So that would be a huge red
Yeah.
flag for you.
Exactly. And if you don't know about it, then you can't ask these questions to people that you're dating. Like, how do you feel about holding hands when we go out? How do we
Right.
feel about hugging and kissing on the train? Because these things are
Right.
things that make me feel loved, but might make you feel like you want to, crawl into the floor. I don't know.
Right.
So it's really important.
That's
but if you
a
don't
good
even
question.
know. So
Yeah.
yeah, I did that as well, which was amazing. But yeah, the book was so good.
Nice. Well, I'm going to have to read that one. So, speaking of affection and all these things, the last thing I want to talk about is sexual intimacy. So, obviously, sex is important in relationships.
Yeah.
Some of us have different libidos, but I've found, it's certainly important. I would say, I would even go as far as 50-50, I would say. It's often the one thing a lot of couples talk about, and it's also the one thing that a lot of them separate for, you know what I mean?
I think it's more than 50 for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I know there's other important things, but
No, that's okay. Like you said, intimacy, it's important. I mean, it goes beyond physical pleasure, obviously.
yeah,
I think
exactly.
I think women have more of a mental connection. Obviously, I think guys are a little bit more physical. But for me, I know I have to have the mental connection with you.
Yeah.
We have to align on certain things, or I won't be able to even go through the sexual act at the end of the day. I won't be able to.
Oh, that was such a PC way to say
I
that.
swear. I
Won't be able to go through with the sexual act. Aw.
That's just what I was going to say. Get it up. Those
I
three
know
words.
what you meant.
But you know what I mean. Yeah. But having open communication, trust, and all the vulnerability, like you said, as we discussed earlier, it all matters. It's not just the act of having sex, is it?
Yeah, no.
But
I
it's the
agree.
openness to talk about what do you like.
Yeah.
What gets you off? What gives you that orgasm at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are afraid to talk about that. Some people even are afraid to talk to their partners about it. These are the little things that stack up and stack up and stack up, and there's this compound effect, and then after a while, that just like it's no good for anybody because there's all this insecurity, no one's communicating, and then everybody's unpleased. So we need to have more communication when it comes to sexual intimacy. Would you
Yeah.
agree? Would you agree with that one?
I agree with you. I think it's easy to take things personally. Like, you're so vulnerable at that time.
Right.
And I guess I'm trying to learn how to communicate what I need, but it's very hard.
Have you not done that in the past?
I've not done that in the past.
Really?
So I can do it now, but it's uncomfortable. I do it because I'm trying to work on it and I have a conscious thought about improving my communication in general. And when your communication is better in your relationship, it's easier to
Right.
then talk about it
That's good.
in that moment. But it's a lot.
So if I may, to just be completely open about it, are we talking about sexual positions?
Anything, yeah.
Anything,
I
okay.
wouldn't want to say that because I'd be worried that I was going to offend someone's ego and make them
Right.
feel insecure. that they're not doing a good enough job.
Right.
So I would be worried about their feelings over my pleasure, which is
Right.
not. I don't think I should be feeling like that, and I
know
am
what you
trying
mean.
to work on it. But it's a conscious thing for me at the moment, where I'm, I have that self-talk where I'm like, you can bring this up. It's safe for you to talk
Right.
about this. It's absolutely fine. I
Right.
still have to do all of that to kind of bring it up with my
Right.
partner.
I think that's a good point. A lot of us are just so insecure. We don't know how to communicate things effectively.
Yeah, and we're
We
so
hide
worried about
these
people's
things.
reactions.
Yeah, we hide these things maybe because we just, we just want to go through with the act. We don't, want to have to get hung up on these things. But what I've found, especially as I move forward with my relationships, is that I have told them what I liked. And it has almost been a surprise. But then they've reciprocated to me.
Yeah.
And it's opened.
Because then them feel safe to do the
Yeah.
same thing.
So I've been like, hey, just so you know, like while we're doing it, I mean, I know it's weird, but it's not weird. It's different.
It feels uncomfortable at the time.
But it's like, hey, just so you know, hey, I like this. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
And then the response has been good.
yeah.
Whereas in the past I'd be like, oh my god, this is dreadful. I've thought stuff in my head like, oh man, this is not very good. I don't like this.
Oh no.
When's it gonna be over?
I've done that.
But but if I'm really connected to this person, I feel completely open and vulnerable. And this makes the sex even better.
Yeah.
I found is that when they can tell me, hey, can you just move to the left a little bit? Or, hey, can we just try it if I turn around and then I try this on top? And
Yeah.
I'm like, of course, let's try it. And then you just feel open. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. I feel open. I don't feel, sure, I'm a little bit insecure about my flabby belly or, but this person makes me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And now the sex is so much better because I can share all of my insecurities, and there's no lies, there's no holding back. Everything just feels so natural and easy. I feel like I could say anything to this person. They'll just be like, sure. They won't judge me. They'll make me feel bad about myself. And I have noticed that is...
That seems like a goal, definitely.
It just makes the sexual
100%.
intimacy so much more powerful for me.
Yeah, and I need that. I feel so much more connected with my partner when, like you say, not just from sex, but from any kind of intimate, like holding hands, cuddling,
Right.
all of that. Just like the way people look at you, like if the way that my partner looks at me throughout the day, like all of those things make me feel that intimate connection.
Right.
And if that's throughout the day, then I feel like the sex is better because we've been kind of just getting that connection throughout the day.
Right.
And then when you
It
are
kinda
having
builds
sex,
and builds, doesn't it?
you're more connected in the first place.
Right. Because you can kiss and then that kiss is loaded with sexual innuendo. Or you can even hold hands in a certain way and it's loaded with sexual innuendo, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of pressure. I don't know, like from experience, there's a lot of pressure when you're speaking to your friends and it's like, oh yeah, we've had sex 6 times. And that definitely in the past I've been like, oh my God, like why, like, if I'm not doing that, is that like
right.
is that not good enough? And that was
They're having more sex than we are. They must be so much happier.
exactly. So it's just about a relationship. Because
Right.
if I just have sex with my partner, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, that's great, but it's for what, an hour, half an hour, whatever, then what about the rest of the time?
Right.
Like, is that person looking at me when they're talking to me and having a conversation? Are they like holding my shoulder when we're having a conversation about something difficult? It's all those little things
That's a
for
good
me that are
point.
really important.
That's a good point. And I've always felt those little things are the most important things.
Yeah. And again, like my physical touch love language, I guess, feeds into that.
Of course, definitely
Because
does. Right.
I get a lot of love from hugs and
Right.
So
So if you're having a moment, you need someone to hold your hand.
yeah,
And, stroke you and let you know
Yeah.
that it's okay and you're in a safe place.
exactly. And then that feeds into, if you do that or people look at me with so much love in the day, like that feels to me very intimate,
Right.
and that's the kind of connection that I,
Right.
as well as
even someone just
obviously the
asking how
sex.
you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Coming
But
up
like
to you in the
really,
day
for
and
real.
saying like, how are you doing? Can I get you anything?
As long as you
That's
actually
an
want to
act
know
of
the
love, isn't
answer,
it?
not just like, how are you? And then
Right.
you're back to thinking about your own problems.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
That
it's
makes
very
complete
important
sense.
to me. Definitely.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, and this brings me back to the red flags thing. So, I think it's important to recognize red flags that it's not about being overly judgmental or fearful of relationships, but it's about taking a more proactive approach to our lives, to our relationships. Okay, because I think we've had this whole conversation about, trying to like point these people out and
Like
as
cat
soon as you see the
lovers.
first sign, like we'll just write them off. It's not about that, right? It's not about that.
Oh,
But
damn
it's
it.
having a certain set of standards, right? You shouldn't be afraid and bring a checklist of questions to your first date. It's not like that. You get to know people in a more natural way, obviously. But
It is when you're on the
point-
dating profile.
yeah, that's true. But the point is that if it matters to you, and these people aren't okay with what is important to you, then they're not right for you.
And there's
Would
so
you
much as
agree?
well. You can look on, there's so much online at how to improve things like communication. Because I think
Right.
the whole discussion we've had, every single point has gone back to that, right?
Right.
Because there's so much you can overcome, I think, like personal experiences, you can overcome so much with communication. And there's so many tools where you can learn how to communicate because it's not a skill that many people have. It really isn't.
That's a very good point, especially today in a very
But there is things that
technology-driven
you can
world
look
with
up.
passive technology.
Yeah.
We all communicate on the phones nowadays. It's like, the face-to-face conversation is almost going to be a thing in the past,
Yeah.
given AI and how amazing the phones, we don't even talk to each other anymore. It's crazy. Like we have the tools now to communicate even better, but we're even further separated from each other.
Yeah.
I used to talk to my best friends on the phone every week. Now they
Yeah.
just like my Facebook post and they think of that as communicating. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
this
but-
is the connection. This will never change for humans. This is the best in-person contact,
But also, like you said about your parents, like so many people aren't used to this being such a topic that people talk about.
Right. And
So now it is. Now
Good
we all
point.
realise how much we need to communicate with each other, whether you're whatever gender you are.
Yeah.
Because it was, like you say, there's been some really toxic things in the past about feelings for men and things like that. But
And mental health awareness is so much
better.
It's so much more
all
popular now
links
because
in.
of COVID, which is a really good thing. So yeah, I think we're starting to explore these things as a society, but also in our relationships.
But that makes sense that people wouldn't naturally do it because if they haven't done that from a young age necessarily, I'm not saying everyone, but I definitely didn't have it. I have a lot of friends that definitely didn't know how to communicate, when they didn't learn that. They didn't have those tools when they were growing up. So it's fairly new for a lot of people that are adults and now probably married or already in relationships. But there is a lot of things you
Right.
can do. There's a lot of Instagram accounts and there's a lot of things you can look up online and get tools on how to improve it.
Right.
If you're both willing to. If you both want to work on it and you both want to find ways to improve things, then I think you can. There's so much out there now.
Right. Oh, there's so much. Yeah. But you have to be willing to meet in the middle.
Both people.
Both of them, not
Yeah.
one of them. Exactly.
Definitely.
You both have to get on board, don't you?
100%, yeah.
Well, I have learned a lot today.
I'm glad you wanted to know from a woman's side.
I did. It's important that we talk about this and get both perspectives. So I can't thank you enough for talking to me today. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for listening today. In the journey of building healthy and lasting, loving relationships, I do think that recognizing red flags does serve as a guiding light that helps us to create, relationships grounded in trust, respect, mutual growth. And by honing our ability to spot these warning signs and, make these informed decisions, we can really forge deep and meaningful connections that really nourish our lives, our hearts, our souls. So really try to commit to cultivate a strong foundation for your self-awareness, but also your resilience, creating those healthy boundaries, really discovering who you are as a person and what you need. And, as we embark on a path towards building a more lasting love and relationship that, really fills us with joy. So thank you again for listening today. Make sure you check out the website, life20movement.com, for free resources. You can check out the blog and then also check out the products there. But wishing you guys lots of love and happiness and success in your relationships. And stay tuned for the next podcast. Thank you so much, guys. Lots of love. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being a valued listener of the Life 2.0 podcast. We are now in 62 countries, but we want to get into 100, get more listeners, and I also want to get more guests on the podcast. So if you get some value from this podcast, I would ask you to please become a monthly supporter. I will leave a link in the description, and you can become a monthly supporter for as little as $3 a month, or you can make a one-time donation, and it would just help expand the message a little bit further and help more people. So thank you again. Wishing you guys lots of love. Bye-bye.